Um, but I will do a super quick introduction of myself. My name is Kelly Jamison. I'm a career coach and hiring specialist. I work at Tech Ladies doing some career coaching, but a lot of kind of what you're seeing today, holding events for the community, helping make sure that our community is connected and supported with resources to help either launch or grow their career. So I'm super excited to be here to connect you all with Rachel. So she's from Woken, and as you will see, and she'll do a more in-depth intro. Um, but she's a fantastic, experienced career coach who has helped a lot of people through various points in their career. And I had specifically asked Rachel to talk about like a career pivot. That's one of the biggest questions that I see coming in through Tech Ladies, through whether it's like our Facebook group or my inbox is I'm looking to make a change either into tech or within tech. How in the world do I do that? So I'm calling on an expert here, and that is Rachel. So Rachel, we're super excited to have you, and I'll let you take it away. I'll still be here, everyone, kind of in the chat helping moderate things. So feel free to push questions into the chat, and Rachel may not be able to ask them right away, but I will save them and make sure that they get answered at the end of the presentation during the Q&A.
Yes.
Cool.
Amazing.
All right.
Cool. You guys can hear me okay? All righty. Okay, dokie. Thank you so much for that intro. So happy to be here, everyone. And I'm going to make sure, let me quickly open the chat as well. So I do see the chat, and we are definitely going to have time at the end for Q&A. So absolutely keep those questions coming. And we're just going to dive right in. So we are going to talk about career pivots today. Lots to that. So I jam-packed this with a lot of different tips and just getting the wheels turning here. So I'm just going to give you as much as I can. Quickly, my background, I started out, I was at Goldman Sachs in operations, and then I moved to Bridgewater, more in an HR people capacity with recruiting and performance management. I did some HR research at Aon Hewitt. I got coaching training through NYU and certified through the ICF. I also did a tech MBA at NYU Stern, and I've done career coaching at a variety of organizations, including building my own company for 6.5 years. And essentially Woken, we are here to help all kinds of professionals with all kinds of career goals and challenges. And our specialty is really clarifying your path forward. So that's always the difficult, underrated element. And so, yeah, I've seen such a wide array of career situations. So we're going to just dive right into it. But that's a little bit about me. Okay. So we're first going to just briefly touch on, do you even want a career change, right? You might already know that you want one because you're attending this talk, but I like to just start with that. And just, some people are kind of in this in between of like, I think I want to change. I don't know if I want to change. So you really just want to get crystal clear on what exactly do I need to change, or what do I want to optimize, like, specifically, right? So think about like how long you've been considering a change, how engaged you are in your current path. And sometimes we're stuck because we know we want to change, but we don't know exactly what that change should be. So, if you're in that rhythm, that could mean we need a little more exploration to clarify what that direction forward should be. And what, getting more aware, getting more clear to picture that next step, that next direction, right? And so knowing what you want, knowing what you need, is your potential and your challenge being fulfilled? Do you, what do you feel like you need in a career versus you want in a career? That's a great wish list, laundry list, journaling exercise. And how does your current role stack up, right? So where's the missing gaps? What are the missing opportunities? What do you want more of, less of? And really just getting super specific around that. In terms of career change, the other element of this is just the readiness. Sometimes there's fear, sometimes we haven't acted on the change. And is, your mindset feeling ready, right? Like, are you having hesitations? Are you worried about if you can do this? Are you worried about, maybe failing? There could be any number of normal fears and hesitations. So we'll dive into some of those, but just acknowledging and understanding your mindset is absolutely step number one. So just document where you're at, and there's always a way to get over that, but you just need to understand what you're actually feeling as step number one. And what would you have to embrace, or who would you have to be to embrace this career pivot, right? Would you have to be a little open-minded? Would you have to get a little creative or scrappy? Would you have to be a little vulnerable or brave? And just remember, while those feelings might be new and scary, you can always ground yourself in information, and that's my secret sauce to everything. So we're going to talk about how to learn a lot to inform your pivot, but the feelings of, this might feel scary, but who and what traits could you embrace about yourself to step into that readiness for change? So it's kind of how you think of yourself and those traits you want to embody, right? So the mindset is absolutely part of this. The one key caveat I do want to just bring up is sometimes people come to me and say, like, I need to pivot because my job search isn't working. So I just kind of want you to take a moment to acknowledge that sometimes it's, job search tactics that need to be refined versus, am I going after the wrong direction, or do I just want a new direction? Do I want a pivot for whatever reason? The work isn't aligned with me, the work isn't interesting, whatever it may be, or maybe it's a little bit of both. But I do want people to be aware of that, because sometimes we feel the need to have to pivot if the job search isn't working. And I do want to separate, what should my path be versus how should I job search? So do a quick moment of reflection. Tell us in the chat, are you feeling like you want to improve your job search tactics? That would be option number one. Option number two is, yeah, job search tactics aside, I actually do want to pivot my direction. Or option number three might be, I actually need to work on both, the clarity of my direction as well as job search tactics, right? So tell us where you fall. Okay, I see a lot of threes, which is okay, totally okay. Kelly, I think we have our next topic. We're going to have to talk about job search tactics, which we can totally do. But this is good. This is good because, again, be clear on what do I need to change and what does that mean for me? I just want to make sure sometimes people munge those two. So it's good to acknowledge early on. Okay, great. All right. Getting comfortable with change, right? So picturing the feasibility of change. Is my lifestyle going to have to change, right? What would a new role mean? Turning those uncertainties into questions, because again, we're going to try to understand the roles and the industries that you're considering. Are you trying to understand if this job is remote? Are you trying to understand the salary? Are you trying to understand, whether you'd have to take a step back? Like any of those, like, what is my life going to look like? Turn those moments into questions and those questions into answers. Sometimes it just feels like my whole life's going to change, and it could, but again, just get really specific so that we can actually acknowledge and answer those questions with information. And learning is the key. If I have not already alluded to it, it's going to be my favorite word. Career exploration, we're going to talk about what that really means, but you have to literally learn about these career paths very, very deeply and then reflect. And when you crystallize your direction and what makes the most sense for you, then you can start to take action around upskilling and job search and personal branding. So just take comfort in knowing that if you're still not sure of your direction, you can lean into the learning before you do anything else. So get your questions answered and recognize that if that information aligns with you, great, you'll be ready to pursue that path. And if it doesn't align, we can pivot and say, what direction does make more sense, right? So you may or may not know 100% yet exactly the pivot you want to make. That's okay, right? This image shows you, you've taken this one road, and guess what? There's so many roads you could take in the future. That's not meant to be an overwhelming thing to look at, but it's meant to show you there's options, and we can debate the options, and we can learn about the differences, and we can prioritize your path forward. Building your support system is huge, right? So sometimes with a big change, you just want to see who's around you, your family, your partner, your kids, whoever it may be, and just see, am I feeling supported? Because sometimes that is a component of being able to take lift off and really launch into it. I remember when I first started my own business, I had to call my dad, and I was crying, and I was like, I can't be in the corporate world anymore. And he never told me what to do or what not to do. I just felt unspoken pressure. So you never know how you're really feeling, what's going on in the subconscious, but just make sure you're feeling 100% with those around you who are important to you. Maybe they rely on you, you rely on them, whatever that could be. So really make sure you feel the support to make that change and let them know that you're taking great care with how you're approaching it, and they'll feel better and they'll support you, and you'll let them know how you need to be supported, right? So just make sure you think about all those other people. All right. So limiting mindsets is another component. We've touched on this, but just really acknowledge what you're feeling. And, if there's anything holds you back, understand what that is and try to reframe it into something more constructive. So there's a lot we could talk about with limiting mindsets. And I see a raised hand, but just use that Q&A feature or write your question in the chat, and we're going to have time at the end for all the questions. Okay, so what are the benefits to making a change, right? So number one is the organic paving of your career, right? So your job search is going to be so much more efficient if you know where you're going. Your interviews are going to be way more compelling and effective if you know where you're going and why. You're also going to get really good exposure, right? So if you're in the next right role, you're going to see it's going to open you up to a whole new world. And then you're going to be like naturally knowing exactly where to go next. So you want that career path to be organic. And just consider your vantage point. Like, you may have worked with people in the past, a partner, a vendor, an agency, a consultant, some sort of, who was adjacent to your previous world. And, maybe you haven't considered things like that, right? So those are adjacencies that could allow for a slight pivot in a new, refreshing direction that might still be relevant to your path. Pivots create opportunity, right? So where's that adjustment? Where's that fresh angle you could take? So again, this is another really underrated component, but are you looking for like a similar role in a different industry, or are you looking for similar role, similar industry, but a different organization, whether it's size or stage, or, same industry, but a pivot in role? So really know what camp you're in. It is a little hard to change both role and industry all at the same time. So really prioritize your game plan. And over the course of your career, you can change multiple of these different things, but try for one first and really know your priorities and your preference. And of course, there's benefits in terms of like earning more money faster. You really want to be engaged in your career path. It has so many benefits. Combining several interests into one. I love when I see career clarity just blossom, because you're like, oh, I love this and I love this. And this job combines all that, which is beautiful. And exploring new ways of having impact in areas you believe in. Like, I see a lot of teachers and they want to be in like ed tech or things like that. So you can still act on the mission of what you believe in, but maybe in a different capacity, right? Life benefits, truly. Being engaged at work does affect your well-being. So you're going to feel relieved. You're going to feel excited. It really does have effects on your physical and mental health to be in a career path that aligns with you. And just, I like to see careers as like this iterative, informed experiment. So try, test, learn, reflect, iterate, repeat. How did things go in the past? What went well? What didn't go well? And what can I do better and differently in my next career step? What are the exact areas for improvement from your past roles of where you really want to make those adjustments, right? So here's a great, very powerful framework that you can rely on, either for reflecting on a past job, or if you're actually trying to clarify your future direction. So this is one of my most powerful frameworks, and we're going to just dive right in. So number one, it's what I call the function, which is the day-to-day. It's like, what are your affinities and tendencies and propensities and what you're natural at? But it really relates to the activities or the skills or the responsibilities of the day-to-day at work. That's what the first bucket is all about. The second bucket is what I call content. So it's the nature of the work. So for example, your function, maybe you're analyzing data. Content would be, what data are we looking at, right? Or maybe you're doing, training or consulting. What are you training on? What are you consulting about? Those are the two differences here. The third is the environment, the work environment. What does it look and feel like? The people, the pace, all that good stuff. So what we typically hear is role, industry, and culture. These are the commonly used phrases. Remember to bring it back to the root of what each of these things really means. And you know, you can, again, such a powerful framework. You really want clarity in each of these buckets. And again, you can also reflect on past experiences with each of these buckets. It's a great journaling exercise. And it's just a great anchor whenever you're like, what do I want? You just like take stock of where you land, where you fall in each of these, and what could use a little more love and what could use a little more exploration or time or effort in each of these three buckets, right? So tell us, which of these do you think has the most room for improvement in each of these three buckets? What are you hoping to really prioritize or make a change in terms of your next career direction? Let us know in the chat which of these three is feeling top of mind for you. I would love to see what people are, and it can be more than one. It can be 2 out of 3, it could be 3 out of 3. Okay, I see a lot of role, some industry, some culture. By the way, they're all very important. The role is your day-to-day. I mean, it makes up everything. The environment and the company culture is so underrated. We have to work with good people. And the industry also allows you to connect with the mission of like, why are we all here? What's the ultimate problem we're solving? What is the innovation that I want to be a part of, the impact, right? So each of them is super important in a different sort of way. But it's really good to know your priorities, your needs, and where you're at. Okay, amazing. Okay, so what is career exploration? It is a process that is distinct from and a precursor to the job search that includes learning and reflection in order to compare and contrast and narrow in and prioritize and clarify which path you are confident in pursuing as your next step. If anybody watched Parks and Rec, this picture is from when Ben, was working for this accounting firm. He actually never stayed in the job, but it was such a great fit. They loved the team. They all got along. They all laughed at the same silly jokes. And I always say you want to find your room the same way that, Ben did. Again, he didn't stay in that job, but you could just tell when they all came together, they just had this vibe going. And so you want to figure out like, where is that place? What is that role? Where would I feel that click? And you want to feel certainty. And if you're not yet certain, it takes more learning or more reflection or both. So we're going to teach you how to do that. But that's what this process is, okay? So I'm going to walk you through the actual step-by-step process, okay? So step number 1 is what I call motivation and accountability, which means, am I ready? Like, do I want to explore? Do I need to explore, right? Like, am I in this phase of exploration? Am I ready for that? Step number 2 is reflection. So you're literally going to reflect on each of these 3 buckets very deeply and get to know yourself in each of these 3 buckets. And then you want to narrow it down. So you want to figure out what roles and what industries relate to my reflections, my affinities, my strengths, and my interests. You might have a short list at this point. You might have options for certain roles and certain industries. It's okay not to know yet, right? You just have a short list of options. Online research, right? It can only go so far, but it is helpful. Of course, Google, there's ChatGPT, there's TikTok, there's YouTube. Any online source of information is great. It's just not everything, right? My most important part of exploration is networking. And what that really means is having informational phone calls. It could be 20 minutes, 30 minutes with someone who's in the role or in the industry that you're actually considering and what you want to learn about. It's like, I'm considering doing this. I want to go meet people who are doing it. And you're going to ask them very concrete, creative, comprehensive set of questions so that you can accurately picture, what is this path really? You want to be so crystal clear that you understand what that job is as if you could walk in tomorrow and do it. And then you want to iterate. So what you're going to do is week over week, learn, synthesize, reflect, and pivot. And you're going to say, I want to learn more about this. I want to learn less about this. This is relevant. This is interesting. This is irrelevant. Rule that out, lean in closer to this. Oh, I learned about this other thing that I never heard of. It's this pivoting process. And that's what eventually gets you to be clear. There is a world that you feel clear. That's what I'm here to tell people. Feeling clear is possible. It is feasible. It is encouraged. And then you can decide on upskilling. Okay, so a certification, a course, a self-driven project, a pro bono project, whatever it is, hands-on learning can come at that point. And then, of course, branding yourself in line with your direction, and of course, job search. Okay, so this is the process in an ideal world to take. All right. Timing. Timing is an interesting thing. So exploration can be done before or during. I obviously suggest you do this before you job search, right? It's going to make everything more efficient, more effective, and increase the odds you actually feel aligned with the job when you get there. So really just think about, should I take a step back from my search just to do exploration independently? And a little bit goes a long way. Just a week or two or three of just doing exploration when no one is asking you any interview questions. Because in an interview, you're like, I have to show up to this thing and tell them the right answers versus answer the interview questions for yourself. Right. And by the way, exploration, another component of the timing is any job change, you're going to do this. You're going to do this process. So tell us in the chat, do you feel like you want to take a step back and do this? Or do you kind of feel like you can do it simultaneously? Or see, maybe you're not sure yet. And we can talk more about it. But truly, my life's work is devoted to encouraging people to see the benefit of trying to do this independently before any job search. So I know it feels like you're delaying the rest, but it is the most strategic upfront investment of your time. It's going to feel refreshing. If you're lacking any clarity at all, take that deep dive, learn so deeply, and come back to the search in a way that you're going to just feel raring to go with information, right? You want the information about your direction to actually help inform your strategy for job search as well, right? So if you have options and you're not sure what to look into, it may be slowing you down. It may not be helping your job search, right? So that's why we want to kind of do this. So anyway, food for thought. Okay. How do I know if I'm right for a certain role, right? With pivoting, we're kind of like doing this skill gap analysis thing. So you do need to know yourself first and foremost, right? Like, what am I good at? What am I great at? And what roles align? Of course, you're going to do career exploration. And just remember, if there's still options, really do the deep dive of exploration to get clear on what role makes the most sense for you. You need to learn, what is this role? Like, who do they hire? What is the day to day, right? Like, really deeply understand that. And I love thinking about roles like a pie chart. So, how would somebody divide up the slices of a pie if their role was a pie chart, right? And also, like, how do people break in? What do they look for in a new hire? Certifications, any sort of background, like, what do I need to do to actually get there, right? So, understanding yourself, understanding the role really, really deeply. And then you can do a little skill gap analysis. So, you can really analyze a job posting and say, like, have I done these responsibilities in a different way? Have I used similar skills? Have I proven impact in these areas? Am I meeting 70% of the requirements, right? And where can I upskill? What gaps do I have? How can I fill that gap, right? So you kind of want to compare where you stand with the role that you're looking for. Upskilling is so important. It it gives you a topic of discussion. It also, by the way, you can meet people through upskilling. It's also going to make you feel more confident. Like, if you're doing job search and you have some sort of project going on, a course, a certification, a self-driven project, a pro bono project, doesn't matter what it is, you're going to feel creative, you're going to feel productive. It's going to get the positivity going. And yeah, it's just going to actually show your interviewers that you're literally committed to that path because you went out of your own way to take time and potentially money to start learning along that path, right? So determine your skill gaps, consider what format of an experience you want. Like, do I want a portfolio builder project, or do I want more of like a, I'm sitting in a course and I'm learning more formally? And then, of course, take time to research and really think about which upskilling opportunity is the most worthwhile or reputable for you based on where you're looking to go. So really be informed and thoughtful when you're picking upskilling opportunities. Cool. Okay. Forging forward. Personal branding, right? So we've got your clarity, we've got your upskilling. Now we're going to brand you along the lines of your direction. So remember, you own your story. Okay. Professional summary is a great way to tell them who you are so they're not just guessing. So I love a good, concise summary, your background, your strengths, your direction. Make it make sense for them. Okay. Resume, you could try a functional resume, or you could do chronological with functional category skill labels within, like, in the midst of the bullets. You just want to call out, like, when you've done that thing before. So maybe you weren't a project manager, but maybe you have a group of bullets that was you doing project management and you label it that way, right? LinkedIn. Optimize your LinkedIn. Utilize the headline, which is right below your name, the about section, previous job titles, previous job descriptions. Really optimize how you describe your background in a way that's relevant to your direction. I love a good video pitch. So introduce yourself in the way that you want to, and you can hyperlink that YouTube link to your LinkedIn, to your resume, right? Be creative with how you introduce yourself. And even a portfolio is another great thing to think about. Thought leadership, blogs, videos, and of course, on your resume or your LinkedIn, if you're doing upskilling, add that to your materials as well. And portfolio as well. Web or personal website is another option, right? So these are all different ways to brand yourself. Trying to think if I'm missing anything, but yeah, this is the quick and dirty on the branding. Of course, there's a lot more we could talk about. So yeah, that's kind of a bit of the slides that I have. Just so you know, this is very much what Woken does. We're here to guide and handhold and support you through all of these different steps. And we are here to remind you that you can and should find a job you love. And, we just want every single professional to feel supported at work. And I will make sure you have our website. And we have a ton of free resources on our website as well. And those are the slides that I have for you. So we have ample time for Q&A today. And I hope that was helpful. Actually, the last thing I will just say, I know I alluded to this, but role versus industry, getting really clear on your priority there. A role pivot, I don't want to say it's harder, but it's a little bit more of a formal upskilling unless the role is very similar or adjacent to your past role. So you just want to think about, like, do I really want different role or do I want similar role, different industry? And just really strategize and prioritize around your preferences of where you really want that change, depending on the speed of how fast you want to go, what feels most feasible, and what feels most important to you. So just remember, there's a strategy involved there. I think that was the last thing I wanted to say. Cool. What else? What are some questions I can answer? And also, I do have an exercise that we can do at some point if you guys want to, let me know. I have a thought exercise that helps you start reflecting on some of these things. So if we wanted to do that, we can. But in the meantime, I'm happy to do some Q&A. Oh, I see the Q&A feature. Beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna just start answering the ones in the Q&A, and then Kelly, just let me know if I'm missing anything. So this says, great, Prez. Do you think the tech industry will be safer in the near future? Oh God. Let's see. Safer. It's hard to answer that. Layoffs are obviously real, right? I mean, I see people writing in the chat. Of course, there's, the demographics of who's working where. Of course, we could talk about gender, but in terms of like layoffs, okay, I'll do the exercise at the end. I see the chat. How about we leave the last 10 minutes for that, right? Cool. So safer, again, it's hard to say. I don't always focus on the macro environment personally. I try to look into like company specific, like what industry am I looking at? What companies are growing or not? And just like do strategic research around that. Tech could just mean a lot of things. And personally, I don't even really refer to tech as an industry. I like to go more like, specific of subsectors, right? Because every company has tech essentially. Right. So again, I would just be strategic. Is this company growing? Is this industry growing? And just get really specific with that level of research versus like the macro news sometimes feels very overwhelming and abysmal. So I would just, go more narrow. Like, right during COVID, were we going to go try to work at a hotel when travel was down? No, so just do that research on your own is what I would say, right? I think that hopefully makes sense. Okay, I'm going to keep going. So how should I stand out in the current market when pivot into a different role with some experience of the new role or without? So yes, standing out is always an important one. I think having a well-rounded set of experience could be a value add. I just think you need to like make it explicitly clear have I done the things before somehow, somewhere that they're looking for me to do in this job? Make that extremely obvious on your resume. And then you may have other areas of expertise that you can, again, showcase all these different realms of your knowledge and bring it together in a seamless way. So make it make sense for somebody. In the best way that you can with your personal branding. And just standing out, to be honest with you, is all about networking of how do you get your foot in the door? How do you get in front of the right people? That's to me what standing out is all about. And then of course, yes, your materials need to very clearly outline what you've done that's relevant as much as you can make that crystal clear, right? That is my quick answer for you. There's probably a lot more we could talk about, but I'll leave it there for right now. Okay, what else? Let's see. I see another question here. When we do the branding, are we wiping out our past work history? No, I don't think you need to wipe it out. I mean, you having been a professional is still helpful if you've worked in other companies, especially if there's reputable companies. You just want to make it extremely relevant. Like, how was it relevant, if at all? But your breadth of exposure might actually be beneficial. So wherever there's relevant skills, highlight that. Or if there's anything credible or reputable just based on the organization name, or maybe you stayed there for a long time, maybe you just had impact and you had success and you have metrics and results, that shows that you can make things happen. So your past work history absolutely should be used to your advantage. If you feel like it's really noisy or there's like too much going on, you want to simplify or maybe make it look clean. You also could be choosy if there's something that was a long time ago, or if it's really irrelevant. You can make your resume and your LinkedIn a little more of an art. And just with the resume, it's like, how much real estate do you want to give to each thing? So anything that was relevant, flesh it out. If there's something that was less relevant, you could write one bullet about that thing, right? So just be more strategic and creative with your materials, but don't just wipe it all out. You're still a person, and those experiences are still going to help inform who you are as a person. They're still hiring your soft skills. Maybe you were at a company where you really had to learn how to communicate super well because it was some really, fast-paced thing, or you supported some senior leader or whatever it was. Like, those skills are still helpful and important too. So don't wipe away your history, right? Okay, so let's see. What is an example of a functional resume? So what I mean by that, so you can Google this, but like, I don't really recommend. Fully functional means instead of chronological, you would just say like project management and have some bullets, or like vendor management and have some bullets, or like budget management and have some bullets about where you did that thing anywhere. That's a fully functional resume. I'm not sure if I always 100% recommend that, but what I like to do is chronological. And then within the chronological, say you have 6 bullets about a job. You could break it up into 2 or 3 buckets and say, these buckets are grouped under project management, or these bullets related to vendor management, or these bullets related to whatever else, client management. And so you're sort of calling out the skill category of like what you did. So instead of just bullets, you're like organizing or bucketing them, right? I hope that makes sense. Okay. In a 2-page resume, is a 2-page resume okay, or should I try to squeeze it in 1 page? I think in today's day and age, like in theory, a 1.5 page, give or take, is okay. I like to do a 1 page. I think if you're above 10 years of experience, doing a page and a quarter or a page and a half is probably okay. But again, just have somebody else help you and look at it, because there could be creative ways to optimize the space that you just haven't realized. So where you can be concise, I think it helps. But you just have to be very creative with the layout and the format. And I think for the right person, it may make sense, but you'd really need somebody to look at exactly what you have there and how you're formatting it, just to see what makes sense for you, based on what you want to highlight, where you're trying to go, and how you laid it all out, so every resume is a little different. Okay, I'm gonna keep reading. I feel like I know what role I want to move into. Would the next step be to focus on my resume? So yes, clarity first, then upskilling, right? So is there any skill gaps? Do you need to prioritize any skill development? And then personal branding. And then of course your job search. I like to do all the personal branding before the job search starts, because I don't love to sit there all day editing a resume for every application. I like to take a week and just do professional summary, resume, LinkedIn profile optimization, cover letter, video pitch, portfolio, just get it all done. And then, of course, periodically, incrementally throughout your job search, you will improve those things. But I like to do it just like in a silo, and that way it's just done and you can strengthen it more in a incremental way over the course of time. Okay, I am going to keep going with these questions. What is the best advice to a young professional who is working on upskilling and still is treated like I'm too young, or the upskilling and certs are not enough? So I would get really scrappy and where possible, do some projects, like either a self-driven project or like pro bono, like try to land like an internship or an apprenticeship. Because if you have hands-on experience on your resume where you've done that thing before, even if it's an unpaid experience, just have like once or twice, like even if you do a 2 to 3 month project, 3 to 5 hours a week or 5 to 10 hours a week, and you can add it to your resume, show that you've essentially done the thing that you want to be doing. So find a way to like start doing the job, even though you're not handed the job, in a scrappy way, even if it's a volunteer experience. Like, I used to be interested in like social impact consulting. There's a lot of organizations where you join a volunteer team, you consult this nonprofit for however many months. That's an experience. You could volunteer to do things like that. There's, UX projects that you can volunteer to do for a startup. There's any number of ways to just get that hands-on exposure. So I would do a lot of that. And also, just networking and trying to meet people that can be your mentor, be your advocate, and vouch for you, because eventually when there is an entry-level role open, you just want relationships where people already know who you are, is the key. So relationships, networking is huge. Okay, next question. When you talk about the resume, work experience, and grouping by skills, oh yeah, is that recommended for career changers? Yes, the functional resume can help with career changers because you're just going to highlight relevant skills from your past that relate to what you want to be doing in the future. That's why you would do the functional. Okay, I'm going to keep going. What if someone made a mistake by choosing the wrong upskilling program if it relied on more courses, but tech companies are looking for more projects and GitHub commits? I would just pivot as soon as you learn what upskilling you're supposed to be doing. I would just like pivot ASAP. I mean, if you spent a lot of money in a course, like finish it, I guess, unless it's just sunk cost and maybe your time is better spent elsewhere. Or maybe you could defer that program or pause that program and come back to it. It depends how intense the program is. Or if it's short, just finish it and then just like pivot your upskilling to the most reputable, worthwhile things, whatever those activities may be, as soon as you can. Yeah. Okay. All right, adding my question here. If a job asks for X years as a project manager, would you apply anyhow? If I worked for X years as a dev, I used X, Y, and Z skills, can I apply? Yeah, I do think you definitely can. Relevant experience is important, but honestly, I think another really important thing about pivoting is having the nuances and the reality of like, how do people typically break in? So say you do a networking call, you can ask somebody, who were the last few new hires on your team and what did they have in common? Or what stands out to you on a resume or things like that? Because the last thing you want is just guessing, like, should I be applying to these roles? So like literally hear it from the horse's mouth. Like, what do you look for? And what does that mean for me? Because if you're going after roles that you think are right for you and you're asking me, should I apply? Like, I want you to ask the people that are actually the hiring managers, like, where does my profile fit into this? Like, pivoters, sometimes you have to start from like a step back, a more junior step, because you have to ramp back up. Or sometimes laterally, they recognize your past experience if it's relevant and if it's adjacent, and you can still come in at the right level into a new function. So it does depend. Like if you're going to go be a technical project manager and support software engineers and you've been a software engineer, they might just bring you in because they see that value in your background. But, again, for project manager, they want to see that PMP or whatever it may be. So you really need to just understand from hiring managers, literally, how does this work? How have pivoters joined your team? How does it work for someone in this background coming into this background? What have you seen before? What do you look for? And sometimes, by the way, with pivots, you start in one role and then eventually you go into the other role. So you really need the nuances. Like maybe you start out in, say you were in product management, or say you want to go into product management. Maybe you start out in project management, or maybe you start out in product operations or product owner. Like it could be a 2-step process to get where you want to go. So you really want to understand the reality and the nuances of like, who do you hire? Do not be spinning your wheels. Don't waste your time. Let that information drive your strategy so that you're not wasting your own time. How would you recommend to highlight your pro bono work on LinkedIn? They have sections, I believe, for like volunteering. There's a few different places. There's sections for projects. In theory, you could add it to the experience section and just like label it, properly. There's a few different sections, right? I think that you can highlight the pro bono work. You can obviously like hyperlink some portfolio work to different sections, right? You can add those key links and feature them. Um, yeah, that's my quick thoughts on the LinkedIn. I'm sure we can look more into that. In your experience, how does age play a role in career pivots? Ageism is something that I think a lot of people worry about, and it's valid, right? I think all we can do is, again, try to be informed of like how has this worked for other pivoters in this role or in this industry, and just like play to your strengths, try to refocus the conversation on what's most important, which is your value, your impact, your skills, and your knowledge, and making sure you're going after the right level roles. Like if you are senior, be a senior leader, like, and really look for those things that feel commensurate and fitting and make sense for you. So yeah, just being really informed with your strategy and controlling that conversation, controlling the narrative. Um, those are my quick thoughts, but it's like any bias where we can only control ourselves really in this situation. And we hope that no one is judging us for things, that we don't want them to be, but it happens because we're living in a messy world. So, that's my quick thoughts. But again, I'm sure there's a lot more to that. Any tips or tactics for balancing standing out in an ATS but still appealing to the humans who have to read the resume? So ATS, you just need those keywords. So make sure you understand the top 10, 15, 20 keywords and make sure your resume has them. But I still think your formatting and your layout can be readable to a human. So I think you can definitely do both. I hope that answers your question. I realize we're not like looking at a resume, but I would just do both, right? Like make sure it is readable when you do a PDF, like what's my layout, but also are the keywords in there? You know what I mean? I think you could definitely do both. Upon deciding to pivot, isn't it wise to have another person review one's resume? Absolutely. You can have a few different pairs of eyes on the resume, but just make sure you're not going into like spiraling of overload, like too many cooks in the kitchen, because it can be overwhelming. So periodically, you can always get feedback and fresh pair of eyes, but be careful of like too much time on the resume, because I feel that we often rely on it a lot. And again, it's important and deserves a little time, but it's not like the thing that deserves 90% of your energy all week, you know? So just be very cautious with how much feedback you're getting. Okay, so let's see. How is the best way to handle LinkedIn? What is the strategic way to make ourselves more attractive to recruiters? Is there a script or a place in LinkedIn we can mention? I'm not sure what you mean by mention, but yeah, in terms of being attractive, like we could do a whole session on this, but LinkedIn profile optimization, get a mentor or a peer or a career coach to help you look at your profile, because there are ways of optimizing, like from a technical perspective, the algorithm to pick up the right keywords on your LinkedIn. So I would look at all the spots, like your headline, your about section, your past job titles, your job descriptions, your skills, recommendations. Like you want to go through your entire profile and optimize it as much as humanly possible, and just get help with that if you're not sure how to tailor your profile or how to strengthen it. So that's my quick answer to that. Okay, let's see. Let's check in the time. And again, we can do that reflection exercise. Is there a way to effectively stand out with maybe 75% of the qualifications when the environment in the current industry is filled with people having 100% of the qualifications? I mean, check your skill gap and just upskill. Like literally make your upskilling prominent on your resume. Take a certification, do a project, like take it on to fill those skill gaps. Like that's my quickest answer for you, is just doing the upskilling and making it clear that you're doing the upskilling in a way that's reputable and worthwhile. So again, do the upskilling and portray what it is you're doing clearly to others, and like try to have yourself stand out. Like maybe your background is different or better in a different way than other people. So maybe they're 100% of a fit, but like, what is the difference about you and how is that an advantage, right? Like make that really clear, like at the top in your summary, maybe you're a dev coming into project management, and you could say, because of my technical background, I help project management go way more seamlessly and efficiently because I have a deep understanding of the technical work or whatever. I just sort of made that up. Obviously, it has to sound a little better, but just like use your differences as your advantages is what I would probably say there. Um, okay. I struggle with the 2-page resume. When you get above a certain age, it's hard to keep it to 2. I would just get really creative with that. Like, honestly, just choose a whole new resume layout or template, and it's going to force you to like synthesize. So, for example, if you did something a long time ago, or it was less relevant, or it was shorter, you could just have like one bullet to synthesize 5 bullets. So, how do you say the same thing in less words? I would think about, again, if it was a long time ago, a shorter experience, or less relevant, say it in less. And by the way, I've seen people just have role, organization, and dates with 0 bullets if you get really to your early jobs. So I would just get super, super, super creative with how much space does this actually need, instead of just editing everything for the phrasing. Like, rethink like how you're zooming out to like think about it differently. Like, I could say this in 5 bullets, or how would I say the same thing in 1 bullet? Right? Make sense? Um, how many times a week would you recommend to engage and share content on LinkedIn while you are making that career transition? I would say like at least once a week. You could either comment or engage on a conversation. You could post an article or a blog. You could write a blog. At least once a week, I think. You know, you could do more. But again, I think all of job search is about balance and multitasking. So if you're at the end of your day and you already did all the important things like networking and all these other things, could you spend 20 minutes a day? Of course you can, right? So I actually think like, it does, if you're looking at the right balance of time in job search, you can actually squeeze in a little bit of almost everything in a given day. Again, you don't want to be feeling overwhelmed, but I think you can time box, and that's something you can be part of that professional conversation on a regular basis. And there's quick wins, right? Commenting or posting an article, sharing an article. And then there's longer things like I write a blog, right? That maybe every 2 to 4 weeks you write a blog, right? So, I would give yourself a reasonable pace based on how much time you have, right? Um, and by the way, career pivots, you can do this on the side of a job. Like, if you're like, I need a job quickly, you might want to look for something that's similar to your background. And this upskilling might be something you do on the side, and you make it a longer term goal to really pivot in what you want to pivot into. So these are just all things that's part of your strategy as well. Um, cool. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna keep going for now. Although, Kelly, you tell me if you want me to pivot into the self-reflection exercise or keep going with Q&A, because I can do either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm loving the participation and the questions, and everyone's so involved that I hate to slow it down, but I also know that there was a ton of interest
Yeah.
in the activity as well. So do you think
Yeah.
you need how much time for the
You
activity?
know what I'm gonna do? How about this? I hope this works for people, because I realize we're just pivoting on the fly. All about pivots, right? I'm gonna do a video of my reflection questions, and how about we send that out? And I'll make sure to also put it on our website. But I'm gonna create a video because I don't know why I haven't already, and I'll make sure that that self-reflection exercise is something you can do on your own, and I'll go through the Q&A for today. How's that?
I love that. What about in
Okay.
the chat? Anyone else? Because
I
yeah,
know
I
it's
can
hard
picture you
to
looking
appease
at
every
all of
single person, but I hope that gets everybody happy somehow. Okay, beautiful. Okay, great.
great
All right.
idea. Look at us pivoting. Okay, I'll go back on mute to let you take over. All right.
Okay. All right. Okay, so what role pivoting? Why is role pivoting so challenging? Is this a recent phenomenon, and why? Yeah, the job market is harder right now. And so sometimes, it's a case where we're seeing people get more traction when they're looking for roles that are similar to their past. And so it's just the state of the current job market. Um, pivoting roles in the past also wasn't, always the easiest, but I think with upskilling and branding, could have been easier. So I just think it's the state of the job market right now. But again, it's not impossible. And honestly, it's hard to say, because while people are like, yes, go after similar roles, um, I do think there's a world that like your different background could help people stand out too, if you do it in the right way. So again, this all depends, like each person is very different based on your speed, your pace, your priorities. Like, could you optimize by still looking for a better industry or a better environment while keeping your role the same? So I think look for the wins of where you can optimize, even if you're not changing everything right now. Or again, is there a bridge role where it's like a little bit different, a little bit better, but it's not a full 180, right? I would really get creative with what is my strategy, what is my direction, what makes sense given my pace and my priorities. And it is a balance of what we need versus what we want. So really come up with that strategy. But yeah, that is why the role pivot is harder. People want to just know that you know what you're doing. Do I agree with it? No. You know what I mean? Like, I would love for everybody to be so open-minded about you add value because you're coming from a different direction. I get that. But we just have to understand the reality of like the hiring managers today and the world we're living in a little bit, which again, I just want you guys to navigate the reality in the best that you can. Again, do I agree with that? No. I would love for you all to be seen in the way that you are dynamic. You can do different. I know that, right? But this is just the world we're in right now. So little tidbit there. Okay. I know the best practice is to delete everything after 20 years. Again, it's up to you there. On LinkedIn, I think you could have things if you think it could be relevant. I think on your resume, just listing an org or a role, if you're over 20 years of experience, if you think it's a reputable org name or you think it's a relevant experience. But again, I think you can sort of pick and choose like what was relevant, what's not. I think you can get creative. If you're not sure, get another pair of eyes and ears to see what makes sense for you based on your background and your direction, what feels most relevant to highlight on your materials. What's the best way to explain or represent a deflated title? Meaning I do way more than what my current role justifies. Great question. I think that as long as you're doing like, you understand the industry standard title of like what's accurate to reflect what you're doing. I don't want you to like fully change the title, but like in theory, you could massage your job title a little bit, especially sometimes company gives internal job titles that are really weird and like just don't even make any sense. So like industry standard words that represent the job you are actually doing, I think is okay, as long as you truly understand the industry standard titles. And then in parentheses, you could have your given title. Be very careful of like, I would be careful of levels versus just the function as well. And if you're not sure, again, that functional resume where say you have 8 bullets, group it into 2 to 3 to 4 sections of like, what are the buckets of what you did? Because at the very least, you make sure that each of the components of your job is clear of like all the different things that you did. And in the right situation, I think you can sort of massage a title, but you just have to be very careful. In a reference call, they may ask, oh, I see so-and-so was your VP of, so just don't like lie. It has to make sense. It has to be reasonable, but I think there are ways to do it. And also lead with verbs. Like if you oversee, if you lead, if you spearhead, if you manage, if you run, use those verbs, right? Or use metrics like I manage 20 people. I manage the entire marketing department. I manage the full cycle recruiting process. I manage all people operations for the entire company. Use your words, you know what I mean? Make it super, super, super clear, exactly the level, the scope, the depth, use metrics, use numbers, use specifics, make it clear your scope, your breadth, your depth, use your words to be as crystal clear as humanly possible. Do you think there are ways to have the best resume for the ATS systems staffing is using? Yeah, absolutely. Again, keywords. You need to understand what are the common keywords in the resumes, or sorry, in the job postings, and make sure your resume has those keywords. Pretty much, right? That's the key. And there are tools to, like job scan and things where you can compare your resume to job postings to see how things stack up. Let's see here. Are there any platforms you recommend running a resume through to see if okay, job scan. Yep, that would be the one. And I could try to dig up a referral link that I have. So let me actually see if I can send that to you all really fast here. Yeah, job scan. This is a referral link if you guys want it. And by the way, I have other, I'll quickly send these because I also love some co-working tools, by the way. So if you're having any struggle with accountability, those are some other tools for co-working that I love while I'm sending links. Let's see. How should I present old unrelated jobs in my resume? I have removed bullets and grouped them, but not sure if this makes sense. Yeah. If it's unrelated, I would do exactly what you did, remove bullets and just put them as previous experience. I think you did the right thing because it's still good to show that you like worked for however many years, the tenure of your jobs, the fact that you just like have more experience as a professional. Like I still think it helps, but yeah, I think removing the bullets is kind of the way to go. Um, MBA, what specific roles is it opening? Using it for a career pivot, would we hear about more roles along the process, or is it mainly the ones that we think about? Well, if you're already in the MBA, you want to just do your own career exploration journey to figure out what you want out of the degree or leverage, career services. Of course, I'm happy to help. This is what we do, is help people figure out their career path. But an MBA is very, very broad. So you have to kind of make of it what you want. You could go into consulting or sustainability or like there's any number of things you could do with it. So really you have to know yourself and what you want out of it and go find the right clubs, the right internships, the right classes, and really, yeah, make the most of it that way. I'm looking at the time. I'll try one more. I constantly get not picked for internships, though being overqualified. Um, that could be it. If you're overqualified, right? So if it's an internship, it's probably for undergrads or graduate interns. So if you're looking for like hands-on projects, I would try to get creative with like forming an informal apprenticeship or pro bono project or freelancing or volunteering or things like that. So it depends if you want hands-on experience. How can I structure that a little differently? Internships might be meant for undergrad or grad interns, so I would just be careful of like who exactly they look for programs like that. Um, I'm going to pause there, but Kelly, maybe we can save these questions somehow. I'm sure you can find them in Zoom and maybe we can answer them on, go live on Insta and do something because I want to get all the questions answered somewhere. I would love to help further, but for the sake of time, I will pause and we hope to be back again soon. We're going to do more with Tech Ladies. We'll be coming back at you. So please do get in touch. We are here to help, and just deep breaths. All will be okay. You're going to get there. You're going to strategize. You've got the community. And just remember, you can always take a step back and you can pivot to make your pivot, right? Be nimble of like, what do I need to adjust to get where I want to go, right? So pivoting is the name of the game, right? And you absolutely will get somewhere, but be strategic of what makes the most sense for me. And that is really what's going to help you. So we're here to help. We'll be back soon. Kelly, any words of wisdom?
Yes. So, I mean, what inspired this was essentially the community's feedback, what people wanted. So, I would love to even take a second to like look through these questions and see what the common themes were. And that might be a great jumping off point for our next collaboration. Because I always just want to like meet you all where you're at and where you're feeling like you need the most support. So it's definitely my plan. And then before I let you all go, I do want to do a quick plug for Tech Ladies. So we've had a talent network in existence, and we were sort of testing it out and focusing on people with like 5+ years of experience. But recently, like we have been working hard in the background to open it up to everyone with lots of different experience levels, lots of different backgrounds. So we're super excited to be able to expand this. So essentially, it's just an ability for you to create a profile within Tech Ladies that's only visible to our vetted employer partners. And like hope the goal would be that our partners would like search through there, and if they have an opportunity that's fitting to you, reach out to you. But beyond that too, I'm kind of working on making sure that I get extra like perks into the people who are in the network as well, like extra career support. So I put the link in the chat. Would love to apply and see you there. It's just another way also to really get involved with the Tech Ladies community. I really, work hard to provide events like this, but I think the power is really in community. Like I saw today in the chat how you were all supporting each other. think you really get out what you put in. So stay involved, stay connected, utilize the resources, including Rachel. Um, yeah, that's my last plug. But Rachel,
Amazing.
I really appreciate the time that you took today. I loved the content that you shared and your willingness to dive in and take all of the questions. There's yeah, clearly a
Amazing.
lot
I'm
to learn.
so
So
glad to help.
um,
And yeah, hopefully we'll be back soon with more.
yeah, perfect. And I know I put it in the chat, but also this recording will go out in a follow-up email. And then Rachel, I'll connect with you too, because it sounds like you might have something new that you want to add before we send that out. So
Yes, we'll do that.
we will get that to you all as well.
Okay,
All
amazing.
right.
All
Thank
right.
you so much, everyone. It was so lovely. The participation was just glorious. So thank you.
Yay.
Great.
Bye,
Okay,
guys.
bye.